Welcome. I'm Bill Wake. This is my weekly summary of the work we've been doing on Twitch. In particular, lately we've been working on the SortTables data viewer. This past week we focused on two things. One is renaming columns, and the other is updating the way save and run query behave. Let's take a look. So when you first start create query, we used to call it configure database, but you've chosen a database, and we start off with the tables, all the tables in the database listed, but they're all turned off. They're all inactive to start with, rather than being active and you have to turn them off explicitly. This way they start inactive and you turn on the ones you want. All right, and so I'm going to try and make this a realistic full use of what we've got now. We're trying to support a music festival where you take classes. So we have classes, and one field here is the instructor foreign key maps to person, which is the instructor in that case, or it can map to student if it comes in from registration. So the class registration ties class to person, which is the student, and class ties itself to person, who's the instructor. All right, now keeping that straight's a little funny, but we'll need class. Okay, and so what we added this week was these rename fields for the fields. And so if you notice, there's name on class, there's name on person, there's name, well, there's no name on registration. We don't really show that one, but we're going to want an instructor class that's the same as person. And so that one also has a name field. All right, and to make the different reference to the two tables, we're going to call this one instructor. All right, now we have them unjoined, class, instructor, person, registration. If you ran all four of those, you'd have this huge data set. I think we have, I don't know, a couple hundred students, maybe 60 classes. So a couple hundred times 60 times, probably 4 times 60 times something, it's going to add up pretty quick. And so we need to do some joins to make these tables the way they tie together. So the first thing we said was the class instructor FK is for foreign key, maps to instructor ID, and then we'll add a join for registration. Actually, we need two joins, but let's start with class FK is class.id. And then finally, person FK is person ID. Now notice the bottom, the message about unjoined tables. Now it has 3 of them together, and the 4th is still a cross product. So person FK goes to person.id. All right, so we have instructor ID, person ID separate. All right, and with this, the query is ready to run, but if I run it this way, I'm going to have 3 columns named name, and that's not really good. So let's start adjusting the columns. I don't really want to see the registration. That's just a bunch of keys, database keys. Same for the IDs and this FK. All right, now this name, we can leave it name, but I think class is probably the better name. Notice when you make a query, you're only getting columns back. You're not getting tables, so the fact that it's a class table doesn't really show up. This is student, and let's call this teacher. Okay, so with that, we won't have everything named name. We'll have the distinguished column names. And this is our full set. So you can see time slotted instrument class, student, and teacher. So rather than name, and these two having drawing from the same set, because some teachers might take some classes, we can distinguish them. And so with this, I can make a roster or a schedule for each student. Probably they want to know the class more than the time slot. Okay, so the Lou Archer is taking ornamentation, prelude, old time music, and bass, and so on. Now I could swap them around, and if I organize by class, now I have a roster for each class. There's 4 people in the 6th grade in 88, and I don't know, 13, 14 people in this one, and so on. So we have this flexibility to make all these arrangements, and because we know this is students, we can make better sense of it. All right, so that was a big focus of the first half of the week, and let's look at how that's implemented a little bit. Okay, so we already had things for a database selection, a table selection, and it used to be called column selection. We renamed it to query column, and we're kind of working on some names. But databases contain tables, which contain columns. And the big change from tables point of view is it used to have a list of columns, and now it maps a original column name maps to the query column. So the query column now is a new structure that has the original name and the renamed name. And it also has that flag to tell you if the column is active or not. So when we turned off the ID column, say, is active, became false. All right, with this structure in place, then when you want to find that name, you can look it up in the columns and get what you need. So in that sense, the information is now available for the original name, the renamed name, the is active state. Before it was just the list of original names. Okay, the user interface took some work too, but that was really just adding a field box. I won't bother showing that. All right, now with these in place, when you change a renamed name, part of the UI stuff is to detect that and update the display based on that. So there wasn't a whole lot to do other than make sure these things, reflected the true state. So it's sort of a model view divide, basically. I mean, it's a variation, I guess you'd say. A lot more is built in, I think you'd agree. All right, so that sounds fairly easy. It wasn't terrible. I think when we did the renaming tables, it took about a whole week, and this took a couple of days. So it got a little better. And I think this new approach with the working table knowing, the table selection, knowing this map, I want to move that choice. We didn't do it quite the same way in database holding tables, but I think we can fold this into table reference map, which is sort of the same. We just have double the structures, and I don't think we need to. So I think we can do some work to make that a little simpler, future refactoring. The second thing we did was update the save and run query behavior, and we're not quite done, but let me show you where we are. All right, so if we've got the query as before, and let's just make one thing. Before we had a section at the bottom here that said, hey, do you want to save this to a file? What file? Hit save. And then we used to have save and run query or save and run, like save and open database, I think they said. We changed this around a bit. So now the dialog is on this save query screen. I wish I had a smaller dialog, but just the variation I can get in with what we're using. And I don't know, it feels somewhat like the right thing. It's got the field you can enter the file name in. It lets you cancel. You can tell it if you want to overwrite or not, and save, once you've specified a file name. And then on the run query side, I don't know if I should really make that the prominent button. That says, don't bother saving to a database, just run the query. And then finally we have a cancel button, and the cancel button says, don't do anything, just forget about loading that database. I put up a different database behind us, or a different set of inputs, instructor 1, instrument 1, session 1. Okay. They're not gonna change when we cancel. So before, our cancel behavior, well, it didn't really do cancel, it just closed the window. And we've finally added that cancel behavior. If we tap the background, because of the way the sheets work, they also will cancel. So we've got those two behaviors the same. And then the run query just runs without saving. Now what we don't have is I would like to detect if there are changes in this, at least highlight the button if there are. And if there are no changes, then there's no real need to let you to do a save. I guess you could save to a different file for some reason, but it's not critical in the sense like if you write a document and you close it without close it without saving. Do you delete what you did for work, or it stops and asks you like, do you really want to save first? And we'll get that going here too. So I think right now run query, it doesn't pay attention to whether you've saved or not. And so it just happily runs. But eventually I'd like to have it say, hey, do you want to save first? You haven't saved first. Do you want to go do that? And let you go into that dialogue from there. It will get there. It's much better than it was, I think, and simpler model, more familiar model, I'd say. So I'm looking forward to finishing up that next week. Once we've finished, I'm not sure how much else we're going to do. The big piece of this that's about done. We'll get this dirty bit. When you change something, do you have to save? I want some refactoring, and then a small feature that says when you're opening, let's see if I can open query, I should select one I've saved, but like you can't see them there. There's no list of them or anything like that. I think I'd like to do like we did for databases and just set up a drop-down list. It could be a file picker kind of thing. iOS is not really big into letting you manage files on a file system, so I don't know how much I want to go into that. If it becomes a Mac app, I'll probably have more pressure to make a real open dialogue. Once those things are done, that's sort of the cluster of stuff around the sort tables that I had in mind for this set of work. I have other things on my list to do, and we might come back to them in the future. But I think, I'm not sure if this stuff will take all next week, but I'm assuming it'll take at least a couple days. I may have a new project to start. I haven't quite decided what. On my list is creating a sort of pseudo fourth language, a stack-based language done in assembly language, just to try my hand at TDD in assembly language. I've written a fair bit of assembly a fair bit of years ago, but never anything using TDD. So I'd kind of like to play with that and play with Forth a little bit. Nice memories of dabbling in that. Another idea is a tool for like a study box kind of thing, sort of flashcards with a particular model of how often to review. And I don't think that's a huge project. I'm not quite sure if my app will live up to the work. There are tools like that already. So this may just be a little quick proof of concept kind of thing. I don't know. It's got some things that'll teach me things. I've never done stuff where you try and put badges or notifications, on your opening screen or something like that. And it might be nice to say, hey, you've got so many items to review today. I'm doing a manual version. I bought a list of 1,000 Italian words probably 5 years ago. I don't know. And never really got through the list of 1,000. I got maybe 250 in. So I'm trying this with this approach, and we'll see if I want to translate that to an online approach just for the fun of it. So, and I may have some other projects too. I also have some updating some online stuff to support the books that I have. So there's a refactoring workbook. I usually like to update it to more recent versions of Java, and there are several versions ahead of me. And then the design pattern series that Steve Metzger started. Again, I've got stuff I haven't done to update that. So I may take a few days to take care of that and then move into a new project. We'll see. But we're coming to the end of the sort tables for this round. Thanks for watching. If you want to join us, it's Monday through Thursday, 2 to 4:30 p.m. Eastern Standard or 7 to 9:30 p.m. UTC. And you have your choice of either live, xp123.com/Twitch, or old, time delayed and edited. I think probably about a month behind, xp123.com/YouTube. But I'd love to see you there. So please join us. Take care. Bye-bye.